Look at this slab of stone. See that one long finger? A whole wing hangs off it. The first scientists who studied it thought it was a sea creature, then a bat, then a bird. Then, and I love this one, a flying marsupial.
It's none of those. And whatever you've been calling it your whole life, it was never a dinosaur.
Here's the file. In 1784, in Mannheim, Germany, a naturalist named Cosimo Collini wrote the very first description of this fossil. He ruled out birds. He ruled out bats. And then he got stuck, completely stuck. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Hold on to one thing. The name you use for this animal today, the man who described it first never gave it, and that name is wrong twice. I'll show you both.
Collini's best guess was the ocean. Some kind of swimmer, using those long front limbs as paddles.
And here's my favorite part. He didn't pick the sea for any anatomical reason. He just figured the deep ocean was the likeliest place to still be hiding something this strange. For 1784, honestly, not the worst logic.
And it stuck around. 50 years later, another scientist, Johann Wagler, was still drawing this thing as a water animal, using its wings as flippers.
But the answer was already sitting in the bones, and one man almost got there first.
In 1800, a scientist named Johann Hermann was the first to say it out loud. That long fourth finger held up a wing.
He nailed the finger. He blew the animal. He thought it was a furry mammal, with bat skin stretched down to its ankles.
It took Georges Cuvier to read it right. In 1801, Cuvier called it what it actually was, an extinct flying reptile.
And in 1809, he named it, from the Greek wing and finger, wing finger. A few years later, it picked up its Latin form, Pterodactylus. Great name. Honestly, it tells you the one thing that matters. The whole animal hangs off a single finger. But Cuvier being right did not stop anyone else from guessing.
Johann Blumenbach said shorebird. In 1812, Samuel Summering said bat, or something halfway between a mammal and a bird, and that idea hung around for most of the century. And in 1843, Edward Newman went with a flying marsupial.
And look, don't laugh at these people. Every one of them was staring at an animal that broke all their rules decades before anyone could scan a bone. This is science working guess, argue in public, rule things out. Suspect after suspect, ruled out. Okay, this is the good part.
Here's how you actually tell a dinosaur from everything else. Not the teeth, not the size, the hips.
A dinosaur stands with its legs straight down under its body like a horse. That upright stance is the one feature that really sets dinosaurs apart from other reptiles.
A pterosaur doesn't do that. Its hip socket is built differently. Its thigh bone is nearly straight, and its legs stick out to the sides a little, more of a sprawl.
Now, you might have heard the tidy version. Dinosaurs have a hole in the hip socket.
It's close, but it leaks. Some of the earliest dinosaurs had a closed socket, so the real tell is the posture legs locked underneath.
By that test, a pterosaur fails. It shares a distant grandparent with dinosaurs, sure, but it sits on its own branch related, not the same. And once you stop calling it a dinosaur, the real animal gets so much better.
That wing is one finger. One. The other three fingers are still there, small, clawed, and fully usable, like a little hand tucked at the bend of the wing.
And the wing isn't a plain flap of skin. It's threaded with tiny stiffening fibers, in layers, with muscle and blood vessels running through it. So it's not just flapping. It could tighten the wing, loosen it, reshape it in midair. A living, adjustable wing.
The bones are hollow, thin as paper. It breathed like a bird, air moving one direction through the lungs. And it wore a coat of fuzzy fibers, which means it ran warm.
So, not a cold, scaly lizard with wings. Pretty much the opposite.
Only 3 animals with a backbone ever cracked powered flight. A bat stretches skin across a whole handful of fingers. A bird runs stiff feathers off a fused-down hand. A pterosaur bet everything on one finger.
3 totally different answers to the same question. And the flying dinosaur, never one of them. Myth busted. Now, the second problem with the word pterodactyl, it isn't actually a scientific name.
The real Pterodactylus, the one Cuvier named, was small. The one solid adult we found had a wingspan of about 3.5 feet.
A seagull. It was basically the size of a seagull. And most of the ones we dig up are even smaller, because most of them are babies.
The giant crested creature you picture from the movies is a completely different animal. That's Pteranodon, named by Othniel Marsh in 1876.
Different genus, different continent, different time. Pterodactylus lived in Jurassic Germany. Pteranodon soared over Kansas, tens of millions of years later. They're separated by about 65 million years and a whole ocean. Calling them the same thing is like mixing up a house cat and a saber-tooth.
And Pteranodon was big. Males ran 18 to 25 feet across the wings. Females, about 12.
But here's the punchline. The name Pteranodon means, literally, wing, no tooth. It is named for not having teeth, and the movies gave it a mouthful of them.
Those same movies love to show one snatching a person off the ground and flying away. Couldn't happen. Almost every pterosaur had flat feet and no grasping toe. It physically could not carry you off.
We did eventually find a real pterosaur with both a crest and teeth, the exact mashup from the toy aisle. Scientists named it Ludodactylus, toy finger. So if it's not a dinosaur, and it's not a bird, what is it?
Pterosaurs show up in the rock about 220 million years ago, already flying, full wings, no warm-up.
Which quietly drove scientists crazy for over 200 years. Where do you even come from?
The best answer we have landed in 2020. A team led by Martinez Cura studied a group of small, ground-running reptiles called loggerpetids. No wings. Couldn't fly.
They scanned the insides of the skulls, and the brain was already wired for flight. The balance, the vision, all of it. Before there were any wings to use it on.
One of those fossils had been sitting in a museum drawer for almost 80 years before anyone looked that closely.
So loggerpetids are the closest relatives we found, not the ancestor. The cousin, which puts pterosaurs right next door to the dinosaurs. Same neighborhood, same big family of reptiles, just outside the front door, never inside the house.
And yes, birds are dinosaurs, we've covered that. Pterosaurs are the cousins who never came in.
But the file does not close. Two big questions are still open.
1. Those fuzzy fibers, some gorgeous fossils out of China, show them branching like the down on a baby bird. A few scientists now call them feathers.
Others say that's a big stretch. That argument is very much still going.
2. The big one. Nobody actually knows how a little ground runner turned into a wing. That 2020 study shortened the gap. It didn't close it.
Pterosaurs flew for 150 million years, right to the end. They didn't lose to birds. They went out with the dinosaurs when the asteroid hit. Collini got it wrong in 1784 because he had nothing to work with. We get it wrong today, with the answer sitting in a museum since 1801.
The animal was never the problem. The label was.
So be honest. How long have you been calling this a dinosaur? And who told you that first? Tell me down in the comments.
Next time, the biggest flying animal that ever lived. So big that scientists still argue about whether it could even get off the ground.
It's a pterosaur, by the way, not a dinosaur. You're getting good at this. Subscribe and keep your facts straight with Stick and Bones.